Hi everyone, I'm back. Well, part 3 is completed. Part 4 is going to begin. I was hoping that I would be able to have this all done in 4 parts, but it looks like it might be a little bit longer. The flower is taking longer than I thought. And I do want to allow you to see every step that I'm doing as quickly as I can do it. So I am not talking quite as much, and I'm speeding up the video so that you can see it. It's not horribly fast, so I don't look like a mad lady painting this. Well, I am a mad lady painting this, but oh well. I am speeding it up so that it is a little bit faster, but it won't be terribly fast. So hang with me. On this, I'm going to be doing more detail work. I've changed the camera angle so you can see it a little better, a little closer. And I think we're ready to get started. I know I am. I've got some of it already recorded, and I hope that you will like it too. So let's get going. Oh, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Catch you in a few. Okay, back to the drawing board, or painting table, however you want to look at it. I have added a few more lines back in there. I decided that I probably have enough yellow, but I do need the lines, so I've added just a few more lines back in there. And I am ready to get started on these petals here. I think it's exciting. I'm excited anyway. I've also zoomed in closer so you can see better of what I'm doing on the paper. I apologize on the other video. Some of it seemed to be down too low. So we'll get started here. I'm going to go petal by petal, as I've done before. Increase the depth of color in them and see how we do. So as I said before, I was using permanent rose and cobalt blue and permanent rose and manganese blue, and I'm staying with those. I am just going to start increasing the layers. So as I increase the layers, it will increase the depth. So I've wet my petal, and I am just dropping in color. And it is just the permanent rose. So now I'm just going to drop in a little bit of cobalt blue. A lot of this is just going to be wetting the petals and dropping in color. That is wet and wet. That's what I enjoy. I want the colors to mix on the paper and not in my palette. So let me show you my palette really quick. So I still have my green. It's all over here, and I never change that green, as I said before. It goes warmer, it goes cooler, it goes lighter, it goes darker. I just keep mixing it, because I always use the same colors when I do my greens, whether it's a spring green. If it's a spring green, I might add Hansa Yellow Light to it, and that makes it brighter, like it's the new green from having been in winter, and now it's going into spring, and it's brighter and more cheerful. And then as the green, or as the spring continues on into summer, it gets a little bit darker, it becomes a little bit more blue. So all of that changes in there. And then my other side is for all my other colors. This is permanent rose, cobalt blue, and manganese blue. So I'm just going to be going back and forth between all of those. After I reach a certain depth of color, I may add a little bit of yellow to it, just to give it a little bit more glow, but that will come later, and only after they're completely dry will I add that. And I'm using a smaller brush. This is an 8, and my painting brushes that I use are Princeton, and they are rounds, and it's the 4050 series. And I love these brushes. They're not terribly expensive. They hold a point really good, and because they're not terribly expensive, I don't mind scrubbing with them and lifting out with them. I just continue on, and I got these from Blick, B-L-I-C-K, Blick, and I bought the whole series of them. I've got the liner brushes, and I put this in my supply list, but I've got 12, or this is a 16, a 12, a 10 I think it is, this is an 8, and then my liner brushes, and one's a 4, and the little one's a 2. And those are really the only brushes that I use. Oh, something that I'm going to point out, see this area down in here? I got a bloom. I don't like blooms. I like blooms as long as they're on flowers, but not in my painting. So to remove a bloom, I'm just going to take and scrub that out. It'll soften those edges. I'll use the tissue and blot it out. It'll just soften that, so then when I go back in and paint it, it will be just fine. So I've just done these two here, and I want it to be a little shaded on this area over here. So I mixed up the color, and I used cobalt and permanent rose, and I put in just a little extra color in there, just to make that one just a tiny bit darker. And I can see on this petal, there's a little bit lighter edges around here. I'm going to lift out just a tiny bit. When you paint over an area that you have scrubbed, sometimes it will lift the fibers and they won't lay smoothly, so when you go to paint over them, they will be kind of a spotted look. So what I will do is I use a fingernail buffer. I've got numerous kinds. These are just the ones that you use on your fingernails. One side's rough. They've got different areas to them. You can see I've used this a lot. Once the paint is completely dry, then I can go in and use a very soft edge of one of this side is, oh gosh, I can't even read it anymore. It's so bad. It roughens it up. I can't even read what it says. But then I will go in and I'll make little tiny circular movements lightly on the paper, and it smooths it out. Then I can wipe off if there's any fine dust on there. I can wipe that area off. And then I can go back in there and paint, and it brings the paper back to where it was before I tried removing some of the paint. These are the same thing. They do the same exact thing. Some of them are a little rougher on either side. I've had them for years. I just took them out of my fingernail file thing and said, okay, I can use these. I also use a magic eraser. And I can't use them in these small areas, but if I wanted to lift out a non-staining paint color, I would wet the magic eraser. They come in, you know, the large brick size. You go to the grocery store and it's a home cleaning product. Use them on walls and sinks and bathtubs and remove scratches, and they're magic. You wet them, you wring them out, and they magically erase this stuff. Well, I use them on my paints too. It is magic to use them. I absolutely love these things. Anyway, that's another tip. You see, as I'm doing this, I'm not just painting it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I kind of just bounce around in there. It allows me a softer touch than if I was just brushing it. And it's wet, so it will spread easier. it's easier on me as well. I love how that mixes. I'm going to move this up closer to you so you can see. See how that mixes there? Continue to drop in color, but as soon as you lose that shine, you cannot and should not drop in color anymore, because then you'll get those blooms. Those blooms are, if you've got an area like this and it's damp, that one isn't, but if it was just damp and then I put more paint in there, where it's really wet would be okay, but then where it's starting to dry, it gets that hard edge in there. This is what this was over here in this area. And if you're doing bushes and trees and grass and that kind of painting or an area, you can get away with having blooms. You can get away with having blooms in skies, but you have to know how to use those blooms to your advantage. And it is a special technique, and I do not have that special knowledge for that. But I've seen some very dynamic paintings from people that know how to use those, and they do it so beautifully. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that I just put in there. Just a tiny bit. Because I'm going to start kind of working down this way so that I can get a little bit of the glow that's in there. And that glow is from the sun shining down in there on the stamens. And the stamens are a bright yellow. And so it just kind of makes it glow from within. And that's what I want to achieve in there. So I keep talking about this glow from within. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm down here in this area now. Ooh, where I got some blue in there from something. That was not good. Got that out in a hurry. Don't know where that came from. Putting a little bit of yellow in there. I'm going to smooth this out, so I've dried my brush off a little bit so that I haven't got a lot of water in there. And now I can just soften that edge up a little bit. A little bit more yellow. This is the other side of it, and it's a lot. So one way to keep from getting a hard edge when you do this is you put the color in. Well, normally I wet the flower or wet the petal and then drop the color in. This time I'm trying to keep it closer to the interior of the petal. So I'm going to start with some water on the outside edge and barely touch where the color is. And it will allow it to pull up into the flower a little bit more gently. To allow some of the green to get on some of the leaves or the petals, just in some of the areas. And this is just from the mixture that I've got on my palette, of the green mixture. Not going to do it everywhere, just in a few strategic places. Move that and let you look at the overall view here. It's still looking pretty flat. Don't have all my darks in there. Still just layering it, working up to darker and darker, but trying to maintain some of the light area in there too. I just don't want to go too dark too fast. I think I will stop here for just a second and do a little bit of masking. I want to maintain the stamens in there, the yellow parts, and keep those fairly light, so I will mask those just a little bit. And I can do it because I don't have anything wet there. If that paper was wet, I would not be putting masking fluid on there. And that's it. That's all I need to do. Now I have to stay away from that area, not paint there until after the masking dries. I've taken and put a little bit of manganese down there in that. I don't know whether you can see this or not. This is right here in this area. Where am I? There we go. Right there. See the hard edges around there? I'm going to try lifting those out because I don't like that look. So to lift out those edges, I'm going to use a smaller brush, one of my liners, and just moisten my brush, and then just run it around the edges here really carefully. And by doing that, that gets rid of that outline look, because I really don't like that. And what I did is this area was a little bit too wet, and so that kind of pushes the color all around to the outside edges. and causes that. So I've got it on a few of these here. Okay, I think that's good. Now I'll go back in and fix that again. And I think we'll be fine. Okay, the masking is dry in here. I can go in and get some more color in there. I'm going to add some more yellow to that as well. I want that area to be quite dark. If you were all sitting here with me, we could just chat and have such a great time. I feel like I'm all alone here. Sometimes it's nice to have people to talk to when you're painting. A two-way conversation instead of just talking to yourself all the time, which I do a lot of. Do you ever feel like that? Ever feel like you're just sitting there all by yourself? Normally when I paint, I've got a movie going or music on or TV on so that there's that background noise. And then I don't feel so alone. Now that my husband's retired, I do have him, but he's usually at his computer stuff. He does, his favorite thing to do is photo books of all of our travels. So he makes like coffee table books, and so he's very quiet while he's doing that. If he's not doing that, he'll be reading. And now that he's retired, he loves the peace and quiet. I hate the peace and quiet. I like noise. Lots of noise so that I don't feel quite so alone. See, I just keep adding color to this. I really want it to be vibrant. I'll do more layering on that once that dries. It's at that point where I don't dare add any more to it because I don't want to get blooms in there.